items, but we would like to add a third that we couldn't get in time. It will be an update on the search for the police chief. So, and according to our rules of order, we can amend the agenda at the last minute with a majority vote. So I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda tonight an update for the police chief search from a representative from Asheville Police Department. Can I get a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're approved. So we're gonna add that to the agenda. And we will actually, let's do that first. So, first item then will be our newly added item of an update on the police chief, and Christine.
So I'm Christine Hollingsy. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Asheville Police Department. And just wanted to provide you with some information about how we sought input on the job description, which is currently online and closes on the 15th for the police chief. It is a nationwide search. So input was collected through a lot of different ways. We collected it online through our open town hall. People were able to go online and provide input about qualities and values that they wanted to see in their next police chief. We also reached out via the Nextdoor app to different communities in order to seek their input. There were email invitations to invite people to participate in the online survey. We also had a street team, and I was part of one of those, and we actually went to various neighborhood communities, housing authority communities, community meetings, and I was part of one of the ones that just simply roamed downtown and approached people and asked them if they'd like to provide us input on what they'd like to see in their police chief. And we had a number of staff and community members participate in those street teams to get feedback back. It was just one way that we wanted to make sure we were touching as many people as possible to get their input on this process. We also attended several meetings that were currently in place, and we attended. Those include several community gatherings of the Latinx community. We went to Beloved, the Shiloh Community Black History Month meeting that was in place, a budget diversification meeting, a bike fit feasibility meeting, the Charlotte Street Road Diet, the Emma community. We also spoke with Asheville High School 11th and 12th graders to see what qualities they wanted to see in their next police chief. We worked with, my daddy taught me that and my sister taught me that, so Keenan Lake and his wife's groups, to get input back from the students that participated in their groups, as well as attended the Southside Open Hours. From all of that input that we received, PERF, the Police Executive Research Forum, who is doing the conducting the nationwide search, compiled all of that and used that information, and that's reflected in the current profile that we have, the job description seeking the new police chief. And that will be open until April 15th. The next step will be the PERF consultants will review the applications and make recommendations to the city manager. And we hope to have announce the selection of a new police chief in late spring and have them actually come on board early summer. Do you have any additional questions regarding the search?
What role do we have in this process?
The role in this process is that of any other community member. We encourage just that upfront providing process. From here on out, the city manager is the one that ultimately hires the police chief. So from here, it would go, applications would go to PERF. PERF would review those applications, make recommendations to the city manager, and then an interview and hiring process would take place after that. So your role was really helping us to get the word out to the community about all the ways that we were seeking input for the process.
I have a little problem with that.
Okay.
We are the Citizens Police Advisory Committee. We're not the Citizens Police Input Committee. So I would like to see a role for us, or else why do we exist?
And I think maybe Jerry can speak more to
Can I
that.
speak to that real
Sure.
quick? Also by the way the communities lay out and the way communities are in North Carolina, by the laws of North Carolina, committees can only report to the city council. The police chief is hired by the city manager, so it would actually we couldn't legally speak directly to the actual bureaucracy of how side of the city government and not the side that actually handles day-to-day operations.
So are we gonna have input through the city council? Is there gonna be some sort of meeting with them or something?
Well, the city council directs the city manager on strategic visions throughout the year, things that they would like to see happen, and then the city manager's job is to implement that and make that happen. So they can't legally even get involved in the actual hiring of the police chief. They are also ruled out of that. And Jerry, if I'm speaking out of turn, you let me know.
No, city
I read about
council,
this.
city council is only responsible for the hiring of a city
Of the city
manager and a
attorney.
city attorney.
That's right.
They are the only two positions within city government that report directly to city council. All other positions in some form or fashion report to the city manager.
City clerk.
And Carl?
And the city clerk
Yes,
does
it's
hire, I'm sorry, the
three
clerk, clerk to the board is hired by city council. I apologize, there's 3 positions.
And Chair, if I may, a representative from the city's Department of Human Resources did come and present to this committee, and that would have been the time to have shared any questions or concerns with the process then or following her presentation.
The community aspect of the process all took place prior to the announcement being created. We wanted to seek that community input to make sure that it was reflected in the job description that we ultimately are using to hire the next police chief. And that's really where the community is involved in this aspect of the hiring.
Okay, I can understand the technicality of how the process works. However, in the public mindset, when we have a name like we do, then that leaves us wide open, rightly or not rightly, to criticism as to, we have this group, there have been issues with this group prior, and now we're in a situation where we're caught between a rock and a hard place because we can be accused of just standing by and watching the process happen if it doesn't go well. Yet we are legally in a situation where we can't be involved in the process, so the public sees us as impotent, whereas we're following the rules.
Well, that's why I would challenge you and other members of the committee to make sure that that's communicated. The laws in North Carolina are very clear about committees, and they have to be an advisory role only and can report to the city council. So when you're speaking to the community as a committee member, part of the responsibility of all the members on this board or on this committee is to communicate, hey, we are an advisory committee only. These are the functions that the city manager has to manage, and we cannot go into that. It's kind of that separation of church and state is the best way I tell people about it, and we have to communicate that. So that has been something that's went out in the community, that CPAC has had an infinite role. That's went out with a lot of committees as far as Asheville. We're not the only ones that have had that thrown at us. So, but because of the role of policing in Asheville being such a sensitive topic for a lot of reasons, we end up taking the brunt of that. And that's part of what I wanted to change when I came on this committee, and especially when I was voted chair. So I would challenge you to go back out and start changing that narrative and talking about it in the way that people will understand it and getting the word out. Because there's not much else we can do, Carl. I mean, this is the way it is.
I agree with you. I'm pointing out the fact, I just want it for the record, that perception versus reality is that we may have a hard time explaining ourselves if things don't go well in the process.
Yes.
Because people are gonna look at us to say, why? And our response is gonna say, because, and they're gonna say, well, that ain't good enough.
Yeah. Well,
That's all,
it may
I'm
happen.
just looking on the table.
That may happen, and it's happened before, it may happen again. So I
Well,
say
certainly
practice
did.
your elevator speech about what advisory committee is, explain it, and push it, and let people know what they can and can't do. Yeah. And then I encourage everybody, I don't like it, I encourage everybody to go to your General Assembly members and get them to vote on it and get the Constitution of North Carolina amended. Change it.
Do commissions have different, in other words, if we were a commission as opposed to a committee, would that change things, or would that just keep it the same?
Well, Asheville City can only form advisory committees made up of the city, so. But that's a topic for another session.
All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many applicants have there been up to this point?
I would have to check with HR. I'm how many, or we have in the past, how many candidates we had, and then throughout the process, what it was narrowed down to. That's information that we publicly shared in the past, but at this current point, I'm not sure.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm curious, I mean, are we talking, like, even in the last couple of police chiefs we've had, is there like hundreds of people?
With when we hired Chief Hooper, I believe we had somewhere between 70 and 80 applications for police chief.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
See, I would think that, you know, I'm just, I guess this is just a comment, but I'm surprised that we have such a hard time with the police chief, you know, getting, and keeping a good police chief. What a beautiful area that we live in, what a great town, great people, and yet we keep, I don't know, things keep going amiss. I don't understand. I would think that people would be flocking to, you know, police chiefs would love to be here.
Well,
What a, you know, great place to be.
talk to me after.
But once we close applications on April 15th, I'm sure that's information that we'll be able to provide to the public about how many total applicants that we had for the position.
Does anybody else have anything?
I just have a comment. I just would like to commend city staff because it sounds like y'all really thought that process through and really reached out to a lot of key groups in the community with a lot of diverse representation. So I just really appreciate that and would like to acknowledge that. So thank you.
Deborah Campbell was very insistent that we reach as many, go to where they are, reach as many communities as possible, and that's where the formation of the street teams was created. So I'll pass that along.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to second that, because that's a big deal, is I think a lot of times people put things out and say, well, we asked for your input, but going out and seeking input shows a lot, so.
Yeah, I literally
thank
walked
you.
downtown for like 3 hours one day just approaching people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so, we, did our update on the, police chief search. Can we get our update on written consent? I believe Captain Kudak?
Yes, Gary Udak, with the Asheville Police Department. Written consent update, with Chief Hooper leaving, she was working on this project, and once she left, and, Wade was appointed as interim chief, he picked up, the project, has been working, and then the new city manager came on board. So basically, at this point in time, the written consent policy is with the city manager's office, and out of, respect for the new chief coming on board, that's where it will probably remain until the new chief is selected to get the chief input and be able to work with city manager's office to move this forward. So at this time, it is with the city manager's office.
I know there's been a lot of questions around that it's been with the city manager's office for a while now, and the city manager seems to be waiting on the input. Is that, and we just want to clarify this, if that's the city manager's position, that it should wait until the chief of police position is filled?
From my understanding, it's a decision between the chief and the city manager that she wanted to get the new chief's input on
Right.
what she was working.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my only question about it. Anybody else have anything on it? Thank you. All right, community engagement, Douglas, I think you were gonna present something for us?
Same format as last time, but a slight alteration so that the sections reflect your areas geographically. So we have 5 areas, starting with this. We're up by 23% compared to last month, with just a disclaimer of February and fewer days in March by comparison. But with West Asheville, it is particularly concerning that we're 71 crimes more this year than we saw last year at the same period in March. So what's up? Assaults, simple assaults, we had 10 more than we saw in 2018. A concentration occurred in Piscataway with 6 incidents. Residential burglary up, but on par with 2018. We've seen small clusters in Awana, which is east of I-240 in West Asheville, north of Haywood, and in Echo Hills and Wilshire Park. We've also seen motor vehicle activity, which is another one of the major concerns. You see it there. We're 14 more thefts this month than last month. 8 more motor vehicle vehicle burglaries, even worse when you compare to 2018, theft is up by double. Motor vehicle BEs is up by 4 times as much. The concentration, like I said, Echo Hills and Wilshire Park. Malvern Hills had 5 incidents all within a few days, but that community has responded with a community outlook or outreach. And then exit 44, I mentioned that before, it's an ongoing target area where we've seen 6 motor vehicle incidents. Overall, hotspots, violent crime is around Piscataview. Inside Piscataview had 10 violent incidents, 2 armed robberies, 2 aggravated assaults, and 6 simple assaults. As far as property crime, Haywood Road, we had 14 incidents. It's kind of separated by crime type in the east of the road, going up into Wilshire Park and Echo Hills, and motor vehicle activity, motor vehicle theft. In the central, it's mostly theft and shoplifting, with 1 commercial BD, which was the Dobra T, had an unsecured window that went through. And then on the west side, it's residential burglaries. And then the other hotspot was around the outlet malls, where we had 17 incidents, most of which was shoplifting, but we also had 3 motor vehicle BDs and 5 thefts. I also wanted to highlight, we had 58 overdoses in March 2018. 28 of those occurred in West Asheville. That's 48%. And most of it occurs, this concentration that extends from Piscataview Apartments up State Street through Louisiana Avenue and then into Patton Avenue. So, that being said, moving on to North Asheville. I defined this, just go down.
Did you say those 58 overdoses were in 2018 or 2019?
No, this is just in
2019.
March. This year.
This
Yeah.
year, okay, so 6 months.
Yeah.
I heard the year wrong.
Yeah. March of 2019. So North Asheville, including everything north of I-240, it's up by 19%, but it actually does have 15 fewer than last year, and I want to highlight the small crime counts. We only have 50 here, whereas in West Asheville we have 210. What we do see increases in is property crime, but only slightly. Burglary, we had 8, but it's only slightly higher than 2018. We got some commercial burglary around Riverside Drive, and then residential burglary around 5 points, and then Charlotte Street, particularly along the hillside road that connects those 2 spaces. And then motor vehicle theft, it's double what we saw in 2018. Your probability increases the closer you get to downtown, but there's no concentrated pockets. For overall hotspots, violent crime occurred in Hillcrest, 5 incidents, all of which were simple assault. And then property crime, mostly around 5 points, 6 incidents that center around theft, motor vehicle BDs, and residential burglary. Central Asheville. Define this as all of downtown, including South Ridge Broad, South Side, River Arts District. Here we've seen crime actually go down by 16%, even better when it's compared to 2018, with 29 fewer crimes, mostly due to assaults being down. What we do see increases in is burglary, even though where we had 12 this last month, it is lower than in 2018, where we had 19. We've seen activity around the River Arts District, 4 incidents, 3 of which targeted commercial businesses, and then South Lexington Ave, we saw 3 commercial BDs. Motor vehicle activity is up to 22 incidents, 10 over what we saw in 2018, most of which occurs downtown. There's 2 clusters. One is north of Walnut Street, where we had 8 incidents, half of those were stolen vehicles, and then south of Patton Avenue, were 5 incidents, all of which were B&Es. Our overall hotspots, all of which is going to be downtown. The violent is mostly assaults, and that's north of Patton Avenue and east of Broadway. And then property crime follows the same pattern as motor vehicle activity, again, north of Patton, or south of Patton and north of Walnut Street. For East Asheville, this is everything north of Sweeten Creek. Up by 23%, slightly better when it's compared to last year. We're only up by 9%, 16 more. Most of it, East Asheville is shoplifting, although it is lower than it was in 2018. All that shoplifting activity is around 125 Bleachtree, where the Walmart is, 28 incidents, and then around Asheville Mall is 19. Otherwise, have assaults that are up, 6 more than we saw in 2018. That again is around the Asheville Mall and slightly north along Tunnel Road, and then around Ledgewood Apartments. And when I say assault, a lot of the assault others simple assaults are domestic related in the home. Residential burglary is up, double what we saw last year. We still saw 3 incidents around Parkway Forest, far east. Not all were in the neighborhood, 2 were outside of it, and then 3 around the Oakley region, east of Billboard Village. And motor vehicle activity is consistent with what we saw last month. The beanies are double what we saw last year. We had 17 last year, we have 36 this year. That's combining stolen vehicles and motor vehicle beanies. For that, we see hotspots around the apartments south of Leachman Boulevard. They're the Verta Vista apartments. We had 3 incidents. Along Tunnel Road, just north of the mall, we had 5 incidents, and then 2 more at the mall. And then 4 in Billboard Village, and there's 3 more along the Fairview Road just east of that. For overall hotspots, the most violent crime occurred around Tunnel Road. We had 7 incidents, mostly assaults. And then property crime was 125 Bleacher. And then finally for South, up by 15%. Holds pretty much same for last year. It's up by 13 over last year. Saw others up 6 more than last year, mostly in Shiloh neighborhood, between Oak Forest and the Royal Pines neighborhood, and then the Wellington Mobile Home Park down south where we had 3 incidents. Motor vehicle beanies is an issue of east and south. Essentially, we had 24 incidents in the south, 19 more than what we had in 2018. Some concentrations around the Sweet Creek Road, south of Mills Gap, where there's this apartment complex, Kensington Place, frequently is victim of motor vehicle activity. Had 3 incidents there, and then 2 further north around the Sky Zone area, where our commercial district is, and then Airport Road, where there's 6 around that general area. For hotspots, it holds steady, consistent with that. Violent crime is around the Shiloh neighborhood, and property crime extensively around the Airport Road, where there's 18 incidents, and they range from theft to shoplifting, 5 motor vehicle beanies, and 1 stolen vehicle. So, any more questions?
You're talking about data against last year. In terms of, if you're looking at data overall from last year to this year, are we consistent with the change with this kind of year in terms of increases or decreases in certain kind of crime?
It depends on crime class.
Right.
So, like, some things are holding steady. Assaults are relative, like, if you're within, there's like a standard deviation, or it falls within the expected range. But some things like motor vehicle theft or motor vehicle activity is far beyond, and it's a citywide issue. It's particularly affecting east and south more. It's higher than what we would expect for this time of the year. We've been highlighting the staff meeting each morning, where it's occurring, where our clusters are at, and how much more we've had this year.
Are there, in terms of the motor vehicle theft, are they B&Es into the vehicle, or are they vehicles left unattended with the doors unlocked?
A lot of our stuff is unsecured vehicles. Not to say the vast majority. If we could just push to everybody, please lock up your vehicles, we could do a lot to reduce our activity.
Okay. And another thing from the standpoint of having been with Monmouth County, we would recognize that there were 3 primary areas that would be trouble spots. And basically you're just kind of, there's a group of people that people are aware of, they can't do anything about it, they know who they are. And they move them along and try and move them out of this neighborhood to the next neighborhood. And it's this kind of circle around that goes on. Does a similar thing happen here in the city?
There's some more, we have some just consistent spaces. There's just risky spaces based off of the terrain, the proximity to commercial areas that just remain persistent. I mean, we're not dealing with a lot of displacement from month to month. It's just consistent areas and frequent offenders.
And do you see any relationship to the weather is improving and you can get out?
Yeah, and especially what we would advise is like around our city parks and French Broad, Park and Boyd Road. We do work to anticipate that as the summer goes on. We look at 90-day projections for where we think the activity is going to be, and we're proactive about that. Yeah, we do monitor it.
As you admit, I mean, obviously malls attract trouble, but at where 240 and Tunnel Road come together at that four-way section, there is a huge group of people living in the woods. Right there, you're getting on the 240 entrance, you make a right, and right as you're coming out from the mall. And there's a little subdivision growing back in there. So,
But it's not a crime to be poor, and we don't need to over-police, those kind of areas. So I think it's a dangerous road to even go down a lot of times. You mentioned that there were 58 ODs in Asheville City.
Yeah.
Is DAPD working with the sheriff's department, kind of some kind of joint task force thing to work on any, you know, like mobile meth labs, something like that's
Well,
going on?
We had this more, just a couple of hours ago, closed the public release. We had arrested Adam Kirk Dillingham. There was an operation done in coordination with the county and the DEA where they arrested him with 0.85 grams of fentanyl, enough to kill 425 people. So we have several ongoing investigations to try to address this, and working at, there's a federal grants that we're trying to apply for to the additional funding for this, since we're one of the highest risk areas in North Carolina.
And we do have a joint task force with BMVCAP, the Buncombe County Anti-Crime Task Force, that's joining Buncombe County Sheriff's Department and Asheville police officers. And one of their primary focuses is drugs.
Did you say it was 0.85?
It's such a small
That's,
amount.
you said it killed over 400 people? That's crazy.
Yeah, there's like a picture that's going around recently where it's like you see what the lethal dose is from an adult next to a penny.
It's like
just
nothing.
nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, for breaking out the South.
Isn't it?
You mentioned before, I mean, looking, all the areas except one were up statistically.
Mhm.
And does that fall in the standard deviation for what you would expect?
Most of this is aggregating all the crime classes together. Most regions are within expectations except for West Asheville. West Asheville is more than we would have expected for now, and we're doing all that we can to try to address that.
Anybody have any more questions for Douglas?
thank you.
Thank you, Douglas.
you.
Really appreciate that. This is,
It's great information.
helpful, and I appreciate the way you presented. We can move on to unfinished business. I know Shauna is, the person who's supposed to be working for our May 1st meeting, and her personal business has, I know kept her very, very busy the last few days, so I'd like to try to help her with this. You mentioned moving this into Hawk Creek community, and we have not been able to confirm that yet. It's like I said, Shauna was leading this up. So I'd like to get some help. Carl, would you like to help secure our location for Maine? We can possibly do that quickly. Can we, work to get that done? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, well, let's talk.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to get a update while we're all together, as we can, all talk and agree legally, so, without it being here, so I just wanted to see if you felt like that was something you could do, you could help me with and make happen.
Let me think about it for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, give you, so
All right.
I'll give you a straight answer back.
Okay, well,
There's a bunch of stuff on for you right now.
okay, all right, thank you, Tom. Jerry, you mentioned that we had the Harvey person, on there, so maybe if you're available after this for just a minute, we can talk about that, because I'd like to get that done and before the end of the week. So if you can get the information for us, that way one of us can start with that. Thank you. Does anybody have anything they want to add up second.
Where is it?
It's in the community park group, it's in Parker's Commons, it's an old Methodist church, they pulled the pews, and it's now, it's being used as a community center for a number of things, around Asheville, because they're very much supportive of using it for whatever you want to have done. We've had bear committees there, the bears behaved themselves, so it was a good meeting. Yeah, it's never ready to go.
That's great.
I was confused as to, I thought it was a done deal, so I was like, okay, something going on, but I just.
No, it wasn't. Shauna was gonna try to work on it, but she just had some personal business
Yeah,
that's
no,
kept her
it's-
tied up.
Yeah, I just spoke with them, twice, just to make sure there's no cost.
Yeah.
And the directions are, it's at the corner of Bethesda Road and Old Oxford Road.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can get that done. I appreciate your help in that. So that way we can take some off Shauna's plate and help her out.
Question, Chair? If we can please have details of the meeting space to Julie so that we can prepare for the meeting, we need to know if there's audio visual, in other words, if we can present, because if not, when we come with a PowerPoint, then we need to come up with some other way to present it, and how many people it can seat, and if there are tables and chairs or just chairs, because that all affects how we.
I can answer that question right now.
Okay.
Their audiovisual is totally set up, so you can do it exactly like you're doing here. They can see, but you can have a table arrangement just like this, and they have seating in there for at least 75 in the room itself. And there's 3 areas to park around it, which I think will accommodate 40 cars. 40 cars.
Douglas, are you gonna be at that one to do a crime report, and maybe we could go into more detail for that area specifically since they'll have residents? Is that possible, or Jerry, you're gonna do it? Okay.
Douglas will be doing it, but you'll direct your inquiries of what's
Sorry.
needed. That's okay,
Yeah.
to me, and we allocate staff accordingly. But yeah, Douglas will be presenting, and he'll gear it towards, whenever he's out in the community, he'll gear it specifically. He'll still do a quick overview,
Yeah.
but then he'll prepare for that community.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And there will be staff there to help, make sure you're comfortable with, the setup for screens, whatever you want, whatever you need.
If there's anything particularly from the neighborhood that they'd like, that they're interested in terms of crime data, then just let me know, if you shoot me an email.
It's a pretty, the only thing, the only question that always comes up is they get confused about B&Es and home invasion.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, and that's always the given.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's pretty, most of the stuff, when you talk about the east side, because so much of it happens around the mall and that area, the rest of the east side is like, they don't even know what's really going on.
I would like to offer, we have a clubhouse for possibly future. It's not as big as this, but I think it could work.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that one of the upcoming
Yeah.
community meetings.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would be the staff.
Well, good. So you're the person who get blamed when
Yeah, right.
it all goes well.
Allison, we're gonna do 5 or 5:30 or different time next month.
I guess we have to talk to them, make sure, is that something we have to decide right now? Or can that be, as long as it's communicated in a timely manner, isn't that still okay by the rules? As far as my reading of the rules, it's okay as long as it's communicated in a timely manner.
Correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, so, yeah, we can just kind of make that, but is there any time that, just while we're talking about it, is there any times like people would say, no, I don't really want to do anything after 6, after 7, it's just so while we're talking, we can have it? Or is everybody fine with like, if I come up with something 5-ish, does that feel like a good range? Or we'll shoot around those times when we're talking about it. Well, I will move on to new business. Gene Bell has turned in his resignation. He has made a request to the city of Asheville to be replaced by another member of the staff. But it has to be voted on, all members have to be voted on by the city council before they can officially serve. So I
gentleman who we asked to replace him must submit the actual application to be on the committee. At that point, unless there's something unexpected, it really would be more of a formality for council to approve him, because the spot on this committee is that of a housing authority representative. So. But as soon as we get that application in, it will go to the next time meeting.
Our next item of new business is actually updates to our rules of order. It was brought to my attention that we have a couple of things that are factually incorrect with our charter in the city of Asheville. The first item, and it's, it was sent out, I don't know if it's in the printed. Does anyone have a copy of the rules of order? Okay. On Article 1, membership, it states in item 2 that the owned by a housing authority, comma, a police officer, non-voting, that's actually, according to city charter, supposed to be sergeant. So it's something we would like to change to just police officer to allow the APD to have anyone present that they want for personnel reasons. So what we're gonna have to do to update this rules of order is we will have to ask, to submit a resolution to APD, and they submit it to the city council. It goes to the boards, commissions, the safety committee, for them to vote on it. So we're gonna have two items that we're gonna discuss. So that one is factually incorrect, but we actually wanted to say what it says, which is police officer. And we're gonna ask them to change that to the police, or I'd like to ask all of us to ask them to change it to just police officer as stated today. The second line says chief of police non-voting. This, we would like to change to state that it's the chief or designee. That way, obviously, if the chief of police cannot make it,
He is designated,
yeah,
can do that.
Can do that with it, or anyone that the chief of police would like to designate to fill in for that role. So those are the two items, and I will update our rules of order to correct our incorrect language, and we're gonna need to vote on, and we'll have to do that actually at the next meeting, because it will be new business. We can't vote on it tonight.
You actually can, it's not the preferred way. Typically,
Yeah.
they don't want you to vote on something unless it's agended as an item that's going to be discussed.
Right.
You are able to vote on something, it's just not preferred. So it's up to you if you want to do it at the next meeting or this one. Typically, it's more things where you're gonna have people weighing in, where you want community input, or boards to have, your committee members to have time to discuss. This is more procedural and structural.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's up to you, you legally can vote on it tonight, but preferred, you are correct, they do prefer that you move to vote on the next meeting.
Well, before we decide that, I just want to call for a discussion of that. Does anyone have a question about what we're talking about? If I didn't explain it correct, in a way that made sense?
Now, the only thing I picked up is that, on Article 1, 2, on Section 2, is that there's a mix of voting and non-voting in there. And can we put either everybody who was voting at the head of the list and then non-voting afterwards? If you mix them in, it kind of gets, like the two at-large seats, well, they're voting seats, but you've got a number of people ahead of them who are non-voting.
Yeah.
So it'd just be sort of consistency that we go, okay, these are the voting people, these are the non-voting.
When I read the rules of order, I just copied it directly from our charter, and that was the way it was laid out in there. But I don't think that's a big deal.
That doesn't have to be
It's just an
council.
order, yeah, it's an order, so, and I totally agree with you, Carl, I think that would make a little more clarity, so I will remove that. Does anyone else have anything they want to discuss, before we discuss if we want to vote on this? About the process of how it will go to the city council, when it goes through the safety board, and everything, the changes? Does everyone feel comfortable voting on this tonight, or is this something you would rather delay, since it is procedural and just wants to be words?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, unless you want Sean, Michael would be here too. It's kind of up to y'all.
I don't think it's,
Is this
not a big
It makes it more open, actually, anyways.
Yeah.
So, I have a problem with that.
Well, in that case, then I will want to call for a vote. that
Chair,
we-
if I may?
Yeah.
Prior to your vote, since you're addressing that, there's also just a count that's incorrect, that does not have to go through a resolution for council, just to correct here. The committee consists of actually 12 members, if you add them up, not 13.
Okay, thank you.
So it's the 5 area reps, a council, resident of the property, resident of a housing authority property, police officer, housing authority representative, chief of police or designee, and 2 at-large seats, so that's actually 12.
Good catch, Jerry, thank you.
And the charter does say 12.
Yeah. Thank you, yeah.
So that's slightly typo.
I've looked at that thing so many times when I was writing this up. You thought
4 sets of eyes you need on
I
it.
think I would have caught that, especially, I love numbers too, and I can't believe I missed that, thank you. Okay, so I'll correct that typo for that. So I would like to submit for a vote that we would submit a resolution, to state the 2 changes that we talked about, that the chief of police or designee, and to change the language from sergeant to a police officer. So can I get a second on that?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Jerry, you're gonna take it from here?
We'll put it in the
for our-
resolution format that council requires. I think it may need your signature, but we'll get that to you and get it then. So the process then, it will go to the Public Safety Committee for review, and then they will move to take it to the full council.
Thank you. And,
Can I interject for just a second? Why would that go to the Public Safety Committee? It should go to boards and commissions as far as a change for, something to the charter of this
I
organization.
may be incorrect, I'll check with the clerk of the board, but I believe she said Public Safety Committee, but I will confirm.
It'll more than likely come to boards and commissions. We usually make those, suggestions for all boards and commissions of the city. And then to council, but please.
Yeah, I'll confirm. Obviously, if it doesn't go, they won't put it on the agenda. Yeah, thank you, sir.
all right. Okay, so we'll move on to committee member regional concerns. Carl, you want to start?
Actually, the only one I have is the, that group that they, a couple of people brought it up, that they're panhandling right at that intersection. At 240 Tunnel Road, 70 all come together. And they're back in the woods.
You're correct.
The number of dogs has
Looking at something else
increased,
that's
the number of
in
people
PSA.
has increased as the weather improves. So just ask if somebody, pass that on.
Karen, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Guess the one I've got are the tourists are in season. They're sprouting up everywhere. I think I almost hit 2 or 3 this week, just walking down the middle of the street over in my area. So just remind everybody to be safe, keep your eyes on the road. Don't run anyone over. Jerry?
No downtown policing matters. I think the only thing I've heard people talk about recently is just the state of their water. But in terms of West Asheville, a lot of the folks that I work with over in Biscuitview are noticing a rise in assault, and particularly the overdoses as well have been a big issue in West Asheville. So just want to uplift the work that Steady Collective does over there and the importance of them being in that neighborhood.
Very nice. Blake, do you have anything?
None from my house.
Chair,
Yes, Jerry.
Councilman Young was correct. It goes to boards and commissions.
Okay.
So not Public Safety.
All right, thank you. We're gonna move to, public comment at this time. If anyone, I don't know if anyone's signed up, if not, or we can just start with Michael.
I'll jump to the head of the list again. My only comment is for the community meeting, I would think that the 6 o'clock time would be a better option than earlier, just given the amount of time it takes people to get out of work and get